Well, it's time for another top 10 list, and guess what? I'm doing another top 10 video game list. No, I swear, it's not that bad. I'm actually doing a best list this time. Video games have many popular genres. There's racing, shooter, sports, RPGs, and of course your good old-fashioned puzzle games. But there's one genre that always interested me, and that's the horror genre. To me, the horror genre is home to some of the most unique and creative video games ever released. But which games are the best in this genre? That's what I'm here to figure out. This is the top 10 horror games. Now, obviously, I can only go off of games that I've actually played, so you might actually own a great game that I might not own, so feel free to tell me what your top 10 list would be. Just a warning, multiple games from the same franchise will end up on this list. With that being said, let me just give you the usual warning. If you don't agree with some of my choices, please don't get angry. Okay, let's begin. Number 10. Left 4 Dead. I'm gonna be honest, both zombie films and zombie games don't necessarily appeal to me when compared to other genres, but ironically, the one film I like is 28 Days Later, and the one video game I like is Left 4 Dead. It's also ironic that both share almost identical plots. 4 survivors fight off a horde of infected locals. The reason why the zombie franchise never appealed to me much is because it seems to always be the same thing over and over and over again. Left 4 Dead was different. It wasn't just another single-player first-person shooter. It wasn't necessarily the scariest game in the horror genre, but it was definitely one of the most intense and one of the first co-op games that I ever played for the 360. And it's a game that really did the co-op story mode very well and made the gameplay addicting and made every moment as intense as they possibly could. Again, not the scariest game, but there's a lot to love about Left 4 Dead. Number 9. Dead Space. On the surface, Dead Space just looks like your normal, average, third-person shooter, but it's the atmosphere that really helps sell Dead Space as a survival horror game. Just the lighting and the way the levels are designed just gives the game that feeling. Also, just the fact that the story is based in space, and you know that you're all alone with no help whatsoever is just scary alone, and you feel that fear right away. The story also had a lot to do with it too. The story is not only scary, but also emotional in a way, and it ends with both those tones when you finish the game. So overall, with Dead Space, instead of making a standard third-person shooter, they made something that was not only scary, but had a dramatic element to it that makes it stand out. Number 8. Alone in the Dark. This is actually a game that I picked up after James, Brad, and I did the look back of Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare. I was very interested to see how the original game looked, so I went searching for the original game and finally got my hands on it. It's known for being the first 3D survival horror game, and it shows, but there is just something about the game that just draws you in. The sound effects for the game are amazing, the voice acting, while not in the game a lot, is very good, the music is addicting, and even the gameplay is just really good as well. I don't know why, but the older graphical design and the lack of music when you're not fighting enemies just gives the game a scary feel, and that's unique and it's also very cool. So overall, it might be 20 years old, but it doesn't change the fact that it's still addicting to play to this day. Number 7. Silent Hill 3. Silent Hill 2 is often considered the best game after the original Silent Hill, but I disagree. I think that title belongs to Silent Hill 3. Silent Hill 3, I think, had a stronger story, and I liked the combat and the environments a lot better. Silent Hill 2 felt like more of the same when compared to Silent Hill 1. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I felt that it didn't evolve and experiment enough. It was still a great game, but I thought Silent Hill 3 was a much more well-rounded game than that of Silent Hill 2. Like I said, the story is fantastic, and just the graphical design was fantastic at the time as well. And even seeing the game's cutscenes today, they still look fantastic. One of the things that always attracted me to Silent Hill was its puzzle-solving gameplay, and Silent Hill 3 makes a lot of strides in that category. Silent Hill 2 is a good game, but Silent Hill 3, in my opinion, has it all. Number 6. Resident Evil 2. I remember there being a lot of anticipation for this game. Resident Evil was so successful, and the follow-up had garnered so much interest from video game fans. Same overall gameplay, just a different setting and different enemies, but for some reason, that worked. What was very unique was the zapping system, which is an element of the game where each main character has a story and different obstacles. That's what made Resident Evil 2 so unique, because that was never really done before, and it added something more to the gameplay and made it interesting. I also love the game's look. This looks pretty damn good for a PS1 game. It actually has very good lighting, and the music helps create the intensity. So Resident Evil 2 was the perfect sequel in many ways. Number 5. Bioshock. I honestly expected crap when I saw the previews and screenshots of Bioshock. It just looked so odd and looked like it might not have a very coherent gameplay setup and storyline. But I was proved very wrong when the game came out. It's not only good, but it's just downright scary in some scenes. The main character is very normal, but the environment and things around him just invokes fear, and there's a certain creepiness to the whole design that just never leaves you while playing the game. I think what really stands out is how different the design really is lighting-wise when compared to most survival horror games, because Bioshock is, for the most part, quite bright and visually stunning to look at, and for some reason that adds an extra creepiness, because bright places usually means happy places. Not in this game. Number 4. Doom. While many of today's games might have better graphics and more detailed stories, that doesn't stop this timeless classic from ending up on this list. id Software made a game that was not only action-packed, but was also very intense and scary. Doom also has some of the best video game music ever composed. id Software kind of tested the waters with Wolfenstein 3D and took it to the next level with Doom. Wolfenstein was definitely a great game as well, but Doom was the grand slam. It was just very addicting and offers enough challenge for any gamer. While the video game world has definitely evolved over the years, I still find myself playing Doom over and over again despite its age. Number 3. Resident Evil. Ah yes, Resident Evil. This is one game that many gamers seem to love, and I'm one of them. Resident Evil just had such addicting gameplay. It wasn't the most story-driven game ever, but the puzzle elements, the action, and just the sheer fear that Resident Evil was able to pull off was very unique at the time. The game also stands as probably one of the most challenging games I've ever played. Getting health, ammo, and even saving the game was very tough because everything was limited. And usually stuff like that would make me mad, but it just added to the challenge of the game and made everything more interesting. The game also added challenges with its enemies. The enemies in Resident Evil were just one of a kind and were always tough to get through. So overall, Resident Evil is just simply a classic. Number 2. Silent Hill. To me, this stands as one of the best PS1 games ever released. In my opinion, this was a wonderful triumph in terms of graphical design and storytelling at that point in time in the video game world. The graphics were awesome. If there was one thing about Konami, they always knew how to push a console to its graphical limits, and Silent Hill was no exception. The short 3D cutscenes, the environments, the music, and the sound effects kept you on the edge of your seat with Silent Hill. The story is one of my favorites, about a man who goes looking for his little girl after a car crash. Silent Hill is one of those games that I would love to see released on Xbox Live or PSN. It definitely deserved to be released with the Silent Hill collection that came out earlier this year, but Konami kept it out because it looked horrible in HD. Who cares? Then they should have left it as is, but still released it with the rest of the collection. It's not a real collection if the original isn't a part of it. And number 1. Alan Wake. If Silent Hill was a triumph of its generation, then the same could be said for Alan Wake in this generation. I love Alan Wake. Alan Wake, to me, is the best survival horror game of its kind. It hits all the right notes. The game's scary atmosphere, its intense story, the wonderful voice acting, and of course the incredible graphics just made Alan Wake a real sight to behold. While the gameplay might have been a little bit on the repetitive side, the story and the environment was the real reason why so many gamers loved this game, and it's the same reason why I love this game as well. Sam Lake is just the king of writing stories for video games and knows how to write a story that will keep you engrossed from start to finish. When it comes to horror games, I think it's going to be tough to top Alan Wake. Well, that's my top 10 best horror games. I absolutely love this genre, and I'm really looking forward to the many games that will come in the future. Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.